My name is Adam Zoe, and I'm 40 years old. I've spent most of my adult life chasing quiet corners of the world, collecting things that make people smile. Vintage toys, rare art books, limited edition figures. There's something about holding a perfectly crafted little creature in your palm that reminds you the world can still be gentle, even when everything else feels like it's falling apart. That's how I ended up obsessed with the Monsters series from Mart. And that's how I ended up with her, Labubu. People who don't collect think it's childish. They see a grown man lining up at midnight for blind boxes and they smirk. But they don't understand the pull. Labubu isn't just a toy. She's mischief made solid. Big pointed ears, 9 sharp little teeth flashing in a grin that says she knows secrets you don't. Fluffy fur and impossible colors. When I first pulled a secret Labubu from a box 3 years ago, something shifted inside me. It wasn't just the thrill of the chase. It was like she looked right through the plastic bag and straight into me. I keep her on a shelf above my desk in the study, under soft lighting, away from dust. Sometimes, late at night when the house is silent, I swear her expression changes, just a fraction. A tilt of the head, a wider grin. I tell myself it's the light playing tricks. 40-year-old men don't believe in living toys. But I do now. It started small. One evening in early November, I came home from work, another long day managing inventory for a logistics firm that feels farther and farther from who I used to be, and went straight to the study to unwind. I poured a glass of whiskey, sat in the leather chair facing the shelf, and let my eyes rest on her. Labubu was wearing the little strawberry dress from the Sweet Bean collaboration, the one that's almost impossible to find. I'd paid far too much for her on the secondary market, but she was worth it. That night, something was off. The room felt colder than usual. The whiskey tasted metallic. And when I looked up at the shelf, Labubu wasn't in the exact spot I'd left her that morning. She'd been moved, turned slightly to the left, as if she'd been watching the door, waiting for me to come in. I laughed at myself. I must have bumped the shelf, or the cleaner had dusted and shifted things. Except the cleaner doesn't come on Tuesdays, and I hadn't touched the shelf. I stood up, walked over, and gently straightened her. As my fingers brushed the soft fur on her head, a shiver ran through me. Not fear, exactly. Something closer to recognition, like she'd been waiting for the touch. That night, I dreamed of a forest made entirely of sweets, towering trees with macaron fruits in pastel colors, swaying in a breeze that smelled like vanilla and sugar. And there, bouncing from branch to branch, was Labubu, life-sized, laughing with that sharp-toothed grin. She turned to me and beckoned with one tiny hand. I followed, deeper and deeper, until the trees closed behind us and the path vanished. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart racing. The clock read 3:17 a.m. Moonlight was streaming through the curtains, falling directly on the shelf. Labubu's eyes, those black, glossy eyes, seemed to catch the light in a way they never had before, almost like they were wet, alive. I told myself it was just a dream, too much whiskey, too much time spent alone. But the next morning, when I went to make coffee, I found something on the kitchen counter that stopped me cold. A single macaron, sea salt coconut flavor, the exact shade of pale blue that matched one of the rare Labubu figures I own. It sat in the center of the marble island, perfectly placed, no crumbs, no wrapper, just the macaron. I live alone. No one has a key to my apartment except me. I picked it up carefully, as if it might vanish. It was real, cool to the touch, fragrant. I took a small bite. It was the best macaron I'd ever tasted, delicate and rich, the salt cutting through the sweetness like a memory of the ocean. I wrapped the rest in plastic and put it in the fridge. Then I went to the study. Labubu was facing forward again, exactly as I'd left her the night before, but on the shelf in front of her, barely visible, was a single crumb,
pale blue, sea salt coconut. My stomach twisted. I spent the day trying to rationalize it. Maybe I'd bought the macaron myself and forgotten. Maybe I'd sleepwalked. Maybe I was losing my mind at 40, the way some men do when the years start pressing down and the future narrows. But that night, it happened again. I was sitting at my desk, scrolling through collector groups online, when I felt the temperature drop, not gradually, suddenly, like someone had opened a freezer door. My breath fogged in front of me, the screen of my laptop flickered, and for a split second, the image of a Labubu listing warped, her grin stretching wider than it should have. I looked up. She was turned toward me again, fully this time, head tilted, and in her tiny vinyl hands, hands that had always been empty, she was holding something. A macaron, strawberry dream flavor, hot pink. I stood slowly, afraid any sudden movement would break whatever this was. My heart hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Labubu?" My voice came out hoarse. Nothing. I took one step closer, then another. The macaron in her hands was real. I could smell it, sweet, tart, fresh. I reached out, fingers trembling, and took it from her. She didn't resist. Her arms stayed posed exactly as they were, but the macaron came away easily, leaving her hands empty again. I backed away until my legs hit the chair, and I sat down hard. The macaron was warm, as if it had just come out of an oven. I didn't eat it. I placed it on the desk and stared at Labubu for a long time. Eventually, I whispered, "What do you want?" Silence, but I swear, just for a fraction of a second, her grin widened. Over the next week, the incidents escalated. Macarons appeared in different rooms, one on my pillow when I woke up, one balanced on the rim of the bathtub while I showered. How it didn't fall, I'll never know. One tucked into the pocket of my coat the morning I left for work. Each time I'd return to the study and find her repositioned, watching, waiting. I stopped sleeping properly. I'd lie in bed listening for sounds, tiny footsteps, soft giggles, the rustle of fur. Sometimes I thought I heard them. Sometimes I was sure. I started talking to her. At first it was cautious. "Where are you getting these?" I'd ask, holding up the latest macaron. "How are you doing this?" No answer, of course, but I began to feel watched. Not in a threatening way, more like she was studying me the way I'd always studied her. One night, after finding a sesame bean macaron on my keyboard, placed exactly over the spacebar, I lost my patience. "Okay," I said, standing in front of the shelf with my hands on my hips. If you can hear me, give me a sign, something I can't explain away." I waited. Nothing. I sighed, turned to leave the room, and the lights flickered. Not just the study lights, every light in the apartment, on and off, 3 times. Then everything went dark. In the blackness, I heard it, a soft, childish giggle, close, too close. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight. Labubu was no longer on the shelf. She was on the desk, sitting cross-legged, facing me. The flashlight beam trembled in my hand. Between her tiny feet was a new macaron, this one different, larger, swirled with colors I'd never seen in any bakery. Deep indigo, shimmering gold, hints of emerald. And in the center, embedded like a jewel, was a tiny symbol, a portal, a swirling circle. I knew somehow what it meant, an invitation. I should have been terrified. Part of me was, but another part, the part that had spent years chasing rare figures, hunting secrets in blind boxes, believing in the magic of small things, was curious, hungrier even. I picked up the macaron. It pulsed faintly, warm and alive. That night I didn't sleep at all. I sat in the study with every light on, watching her. She stayed on the desk unmoving now, but I could feel the energy in the room shifting, building. At dawn, exhausted and wired on coffee, I made a decision. I spoke to her clearly, calmly. If you want to show me something, if there's a somewhere you want me to go, I'll follow. The moment my words left my mouth, the air shimmered. Right in front of the desk, reality rippled like water. A circle of pastel light appeared, swirling slowly. It smelled like vanilla and sugar and something wild underneath. A portal, just like in my dream. Labubu's head turned, slowly, impossibly, toward it, then back to me. Her grin was wider than ever. I stood up. My legs felt like jelly. I looked around the study one last time, the shelves of figures, the life I'd built around collecting moments of joy in plastic and vinyl. Then I looked at her. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's go."
The sweetness hit me first, like stepping into a bakery that had been locked in time for 100 years. Warm vanilla, toasted sugar, a faint trace of salt carried on air that felt thicker than it should. Then came the colors, pastels so vivid they hurt to look at directly, swirling around us as the portal sealed shut behind me with a soft, wet pop, like a macaron shell breaking. I staggered forward, disoriented. The ground beneath my shoes wasn't concrete or wood anymore. It was spongy, springy, like walking on layers of meringue. My hand was still clasped in Labubu's tiny one, her vinyl fingers now warm and pliant, as if the material had turned to living skin. She tugged once, gentle but insistent, and I looked down. She was no longer 6 inches tall. Labubu stood at my waist, maybe 3 feet high, her fluffy fur ruffling in a breeze I couldn't feel. Those big pointed ears twitched. Her 9 sharp teeth glinted as she grinned up at me, eyes black and glossy, but now deep, endless, like wells reflecting starlight that wasn't there. She wore the same strawberry dress from my shelf, but it moved as if woven from real petals and silk, and she was holding my hand like a child leading a parent across a busy street. "Adam," she said, my name, in a voice that was high and musical, layered with giggles that hadn't quite formed yet. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. All that came out was a rasp. She tilted her head, ears flopping slightly. "Don't be scared. You asked to come." I had. I remembered saying it. But now, standing in this impossible place, the reality of it slammed into me like cold water. I was 40 years old, a man with a mortgage, a job I tolerated, a collection of plastic figures that suddenly felt childish and far away. And I had just stepped through a portal holding hands with one of them. Where are we?" I finally managed. Labubu released my hand and spun in a slow circle, arms out. "Home," she said simply. "Part of it anyway, the Macaron Forest." I looked around. We stood in a clearing surrounded by trees, except they weren't trees in any normal sense. The trunks were pale, smooth, like hardened meringue swirled with soft pinks and blues. Branches arched overhead, heavy with fruits that were unmistakably macarons, perfect rounds in every flavor I could imagine and some I couldn't. Sea salt coconut glowed faint turquoise, strawberry dream shimmered hot pink, sesame bean was dusted with black seeds that looked like tiny stars. Higher up, rarer ones caught the light. Matcha pistachio, yuzu lemon, even a deep indigo one swirled with gold that pulsed faintly. The air hummed with a low, sweet vibration, as if the entire forest was breathing. Labubu skipped forward, her bare feet leaving no imprint on the spongy ground. She reached up, plucked a strawberry macaron the size of a softball, and held it out to me. "Eat," she said. "You'll need strength." I hesitated. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a hallucination, a breakdown, something I'd wake up from in a hospital bed with doctors shaking their heads. But the macaron was warm in her hands, fragrant, real. I took it, bit. Flavor exploded across my tongue, better than any macaron I'd ever tasted in the real world. Sweet, tart, creamy, with a crisp shell that gave way to airy filling. Energy rushed through me, chasing away the exhaustion and fear. My heartbeat slowed, the colors sharpened. Labubu watched me, grin widening. "Better?" I nodded, unable to speak around the second bite. She laughed, a bright tinkling sound, and started walking. I followed. The path wound between the macaron trees, narrow but clear, paved with what felt like crushed cookie crumbs that crunched softly underfoot. Fireflies drifted lazily, but they weren't insects. They were tiny glowing macaron pieces, floating like lanterns. Every few steps, Labubu would reach out and pluck one, popping it into her mouth like candy. Crumbs dusted her sharp teeth. As we walked, I tried to make sense of it. "How long have you been aware?" I asked. She glanced back. "Always, but only some of us wake up when someone loves us enough." "Loves?" She nodded. "You talked to me every night. You kept me clean. You hunted for my sisters and friends. You believed I was more than plastic." She shrugged, ears flopping. "Belief is powerful here." I swallowed. "And the macarons in my apartment?" "Gifts," she said, "to see if you'd follow the trail." We walked in silence for a while. The forest deepened, the trees grew taller, the macarons larger. The air grew heavier with sweetness, almost cloying. I started to feel lightheaded, like I'd eaten too much sugar too fast. Then the light changed. The pastel glow dimmed, shadows stretched between the trunks. The humming vibration in the air shifted pitch, lower, uneasy. Labubu stopped. I nearly walked into her. Ahead, the path split. One way continued into brighter, denser forest. The other led into a section where the trees looked wrong. The meringue trunks were cracked, colors faded to grayish pastels. Macarons hung wilted, shells collapsed, filling oozing like melting ice cream. A faint, rotten sweet smell drifted from that direction. Labubu's ears drooped. "What's happening?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached back and took my hand again. Her grip was tighter now. "The forest is dying," she said quietly. "It started a long time ago. The joy is leaving." "Joy?" She nodded. "This place lives on joy, laughter, mischief, play. When monsters like me wake up in your world, we bring a little piece of it with us. But if too many stay awake too long without coming back, the forest fades." I looked at the wilted section. "How many are awake?" "More every year." Her voice was small. "Collectors like you, children who never stop believing, people who need us." I felt a pang of guilt. "So I did this?" She shook her head quickly. "No, you woke me gently, with love. Some are torn awake, ripped from boxes, traded like money, locked in cases with no touch, no stories. Those pull hardest." We stood there, the rotten smell growing stronger. Something moved in the shadows beyond the dying trees, a shape too large, too angular. Labubu pulled me toward the brighter path. "We have to hurry. Taikoko is waiting." Taikoko? I remembered the name from collector forums, the shy skeleton boyfriend figure that paired with certain Labubu releases. She nodded, ears perking slightly. "He came ahead to find the center, to see how bad it is." We walked faster now. The healthy part of the forest felt watchful. Macarons swayed though there was no wind. Eyes, tiny glossy black eyes, peered from between leaves. Other monsters. Some waved, others hid. Labubu waved back, but her grin was strained. After what felt like hours, though time felt slippery here, we reached a grove where the trees formed a perfect circle. In the center stood a massive macaron tree, easily 50 feet tall, its fruits the size of beach balls. Colors swirled across its trunk like aurora borealis, and beneath it stood Taikoko. He was taller than Labubu, maybe 5 feet, his skeleton frame thin and white, joints clicking softly as he turned. He wore a little bow tie, and his skull face managed to look nervous even without muscles. When he saw Labubu, his eye sockets brightened with faint blue light. "Labubu!"
His voice was soft, echoey. She ran to him, throwing her arms around his bony waist. He hugged her back carefully, as if he'd afraid he'd break her. Then he looked at me. "This is Adam," Labubu said. "He came." Taikoko bowed slightly. "Thank you for bringing her safely." I didn't know what to say. I managed a nod. Labubu released my hand and hag buff. "How bad?" Taikoko's skull tilted toward the massive tree. "Worse than last time. The core fruit is cracking." I followed his gaze. At the very top of the tree hung one enormous macaron, easily 10 feet across, swirled with every color in the forest, but a jagged fissure ran through its shell, oozing pale filling that dripped slowly to the ground, where it hissed and evaporated. "That's the heart macaron," Labubu explained. "It holds the joy for the whole forest when it breaks completely." She didn't finish. Taikoko clicked his teeth. "The shadows are closer. They've taken 3 groves since yesterday." "Shadows?" Labubu's ears flattened. "What's left when joy dies? Hunger, emptiness. They eat the sweetness." A chill ran through me despite the warm air. "We need to fix it," I said. The words came out before I thought them through. Both monsters looked at me. "How?" Taikoko asked. Labubu's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "The old way. Someone from outside has to bring new joy, real joy, not just belief, laughter, play, something the forest hasn't tasted before." She looked at me expectantly. I laughed, a short, nervous bark. "Me? I'm 40. I haven't played in, I don't even know." "That's why it has to be you," she said. "Children bring pure joy, but it's